What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
AJ, welcome back. We have had the third week of the college football season, and everything in the MAC is a fiasco.
Yeah, it really is. When you look back at last week's schedule, not only was it a tough schedule from top to bottom, but the MAC did not fare very well. You look at our predictions from last week. I had Western Michigan over Pittsburgh. We won that.
Yep.
And then, Ball State, I really thought would give Wyoming a better game than what they actually did, losing that one 45-12. And I know you were pretty disappointed in Toledo, dropping one to Colorado State 22-6.
Yep.
That's a tough one, but BG came out with a win. Central kind of kept it entertaining for a little while down there in Death Valley. Kent State and Iowa was fairly close up until middle of the third quarter. Buffalo kept it really close. They're only losing by 3. Northern Illinois stepped on the field. That's as good as they did, honestly, 63-10. That's a tough loss there. And then Eastern got a win along with Miami and Akron picking up a win too.
Akron with their first win of the year, so good for them.
First win of the year, yeah. I'm talking about a team who has a tough non-conference going down to Columbus this weekend, which we will get into. But, yeah, they won that. They beat Bryant 35-14. But, yeah, let's start here at the top. Kent State at Iowa, number 5, Iowa. Iowa won that 30-7. The game was a little closer there at the beginning. You and I were talking a little bit about than Iowa obviously being probably right now the number 1 team in the Big Ten. Kind of pulled away there at the end.
Yeah, for Kent State being down only 9-7 in the first quarter, I was very impressed with what they're doing offensively. I think that was kind of the tale, right? As everybody was talking about, what is Kent State going to be offensively, and can their defense make enough stops to win them games? And I think you hold the number 1 team in the country to 30 points. That's not a bad outing for your defense. Obviously, they played Texas A&M a couple weeks ago and didn't get the result they wanted, but they gave a pretty good fight. So, hats off to Kent and their defense and what they're doing down there. Now it's just time to get the offense really clicking. Looking at some of the numbers there, the big takeaway for Kent State was Kashun Abram, the wide receiver. He had 6 catches, 138 yards, and their lone score on the day. He had a big game, even for a team who only had 1 touchdown.
Yeah, 6 receptions for $138. It's not a bad day at all. But yeah, you look at Crum. Dustin Crum was 16 of 23 for $185 and 1 tutty. That's tough. And he's one of the premier quarterbacks in the conference.
Sure.
When you talk about players at the top, and rushing wise, Kent State only had 79 yards on the ground. Dustin Crum alone had -22.
Right.
Which that's tough. Let's see here. Marquez Cooper for the Golden Flashes led them in rushing. We had 10 carries for 38 yards. His longest was 12 yards. And then you kind of look down there, 185 yards total passing. They recovered a fumble. But, you look at the stat sheet, it is kind of lopsided once you get past halftime, put it that way. Now, granted, only 14 points were scored by Iowa in the second half. Kent State didn't score after the first. So,
right.
Tough game for the Flashes. Kent State is a tough place to play no matter who you are. Big Ten or MAC or whoever, that's always a tough place to play. But I know the Golden Flash is going to look forward to moving on to this week. They're at Maryland.
Yep, they're at Maryland.
And Maryland is playing good ball right now as well.
Yeah, Maryland's been pretty impressive in the Big Ten. It'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table against Kent State and what Kent can do. Kent had one of the toughest non-conference slates in the MAC this year with all their traveling, and it'll be interesting to see what Kent can bring to the table next week. Good luck to them. Next game up, though, we had Buffalo hosting Coastal Carolina. This game got interesting really early on. Buffalo taking a 14-7 lead over number 16 ranked Coastal Carolina, who had a huge win over Buffalo's former head coach, Lance Leipold, out in Kansas. Coastal Carolina absolutely waxed them last week. Comes into Buffalo, ekes out a close one. Buffalo made it close there at the end, tried to pull the comeback, could not complete it. But my hat's off to Buffalo. They really, really put up a fight as a team who really shouldn't have been in this game. They gave it their all and gave Coastal quite a scare.
Yeah, they definitely did. And I think you can kind of look at the past few games here, the last 3 weeks. Buffalo might have one of the best offenses in the MAC this year, early on this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have some burners that we saw last year. But yeah, they're a team who we weren't sure because they were one of those teams in the conference that were hit hardest probably by the transfer portal this year.
Sure.
Both exits and guys coming in. So Buffalo definitely has turned a page here early on with a new head coach. They're playing really good ball. You know, playing Coastal, who's a little last year or so has been getting a lot of recognition nationwide, playing and playing good ball. That the huge game against BYU last year. That was kind of a last-second game they were able to pull up. But yeah, now this week we mentioned Buffalo. They go to they're at Old Dominion.
Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, we know nothing about Old Dominion except the fact that they are located where?
Old Dominion is. I want to say they're a Virginia school.
Yeah, they're the Conference USA.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean that's obviously going to be another battle for Buffalo this week. We're going to get on the next game here just because it's going to be not a whole lot to talk about this one. That is Northern Illinois and Michigan.
Sure.
This game was really over after kickoff.
Yeah, I think anybody with any ounce of understanding of how college football works kind of could have predicted that. You know, Northern Illinois with the huge upset win over Georgia Tech to start the season 22-21. They go into the big house, and when you've got 110,000 screaming fans wearing maize and blue, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're their biggest rival. I don't care if you're a MAC school. I don't care who you are. That's a lot to take in as you march into that stadium. You don't see Michigan really lose often at home. Even in their down years, they don't lose a lot at home. And you just knew from the opening gun that this one was over. Northern Illinois got a field goal in the first quarter, but down 14-3 after the first quarter, then down 35-3 at halftime. Michigan explodes all over them in the third quarter with 28 points. And then Michigan finally calls off the dogs in the fourth quarter. Northern Illinois ends up getting a late touchdown. Michigan blows this one away with 6 rushing touchdowns, 63-10. Nothing doing for Northern Illinois in that game.
No, not really. Here in Northern Illinois, they're going to be hosting Maine this week before they get into conference play. So this is a big opportunity for those guys to regroup. Coach Hammock, friend of the program, obviously he's an alum. He played there. He wants to win there. I think they're on the right path, but man, they were hit hard by a hard, tough non-conference schedule. Going on to the next game here, the one that I predicted correctly, Western Michigan over Pitt, 44-41. This game was back and forth really until the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I looked at the score, it was Western would score, then Pitt would match it. The Pitt would score, then Western would match it. It was back and forth like a heavyweight fight the entire game. But yeah, Western was able to pull that on top with the win over a Power 5 this weekend, which is fantastic for the program, or for not only the program but the conference as well, especially the new logo Western's rocking here, even though their helmets still look as cool as they used to.
I still love that Ghost Bronco. That's still one of my favorite MAC logos.
Definitely. That's one of mine too. And we were at Media Day when they had announced a new logo like the day before, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able there. Caleb Ellerby here, 23 of 35 for 337, 3 touchdowns, no picks, the QBR of 79.1. Great day through the air from him. He's kind of one of those quarterbacks who's kind of coming out of nowhere here and putting up some real big numbers.
Oh, I was going to say, you look at some of the stuff he did last year. Real young guy. You got the upset win over Toledo last year, and then was within a drive of beating Ball State to head to the MAC championship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just very impressed with what he brings to the table. And with last year not counting for anybody's eligibility, LB's got, quite a few years ahead of him at Western Michigan, where if he fine tunes a few things, this kid's got a bright future and could probably win a MAC title or two over the course of his college career.
Yeah, there's any question about that. They've got a fantastic program right now, moving the ball in the right direction. They've always been competitive too.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Taylor here, the running back, he led the way with 14 carries, 84 yards, 1 touchdown. But then you look at LB's running or rushing, he was -20. So we've seen that as a common trend here over the past few games that we've covered, especially with he and Dustin Crum. But this week, Western, they are taking on.
Western takes on San Jose State in Kalamazoo.
Yes.
The big out of conference matchup. The San Jose State Spartans, who lost to the Ball State Cardinals in the Arizona Bowl last year, are traveling to Kalamazoo to take on Western Michigan. And that will be a game we can talk about later. I'm excited to see how that one unfolds.
Yeah, that'll be a really fun one. I'm really curious to see how that one will unfold. Moved out of the list here, Eastern. They played at UMass. They came out a win there, 42-28. Didn't get to watch this game actually. Watching other games, every game's out at the same time, it seems like, so it's kind of hard to watch this one. Yeah, EMU comes out with a win. Great for their program. Let's see here. Bryant's led the way there for Eastern. Thrown the ball extremely well. Illinois kid. He's going into his senior year, a 6'3", 214. That's a nice size quarterback.
Yeah.
And so he finally kind of found his rhythm as they play Texas State this week. But just on the year alone, he's 26-38 for 447 yards, averaging 11.5 yards per throw. But yeah, I think he's one of those quarterbacks too. We really have Ben Bryant. We really have not talked about a lot here lately.
No, we really haven't. And I think that's part of it, right? As you look at what he brings to the table and his ability, I think that he could give Eastern a decent run in conference play, give them an opportunity to be successful. We don't know much about him. He's young, at least in terms of as a starter. He's not the most prolific guy. He's not a guy that we've seen a lot of before. And sure, he's a senior, but you look at last year, he didn't really have much that he brought to the table. He's had, in the course of his career, 3 passing touchdowns at Eastern Michigan. He hasn't been the starter. Preston Hutchinson was the starter last year. And so I don't know what's going on over there, but Ben Bryant came in, he battled, he earned the right to go out and try to win. So hats off to him, and hoping to see Ben Bryant come back out and, I guess, really give Eastern opportunities that people aren't ready for because they've been scheming against guys like Preston Hutchinson.
Yeah, absolutely. They also gave Coach Creighton a extension this year, which is huge for that program. They're falling putting the future of the program in his hands. And I think he's been there a couple of years, obviously now, so he's got that program on the right way.
Sure.
Only a couple of years away from a MAC championship, right?
You have to think so, right? I think if you really, really look at it and what they've been doing and the culture that they've been breeding up there, I really do think that they're within probably 2 years, 2-3 years, if they continue on this path that they are on. I think that there's a very real shot that we will be saying Eastern Michigan is in the MAC championship sooner rather than later. And that's quite a dry spell that they're on too. They are severely thirsty for a shot at a MAC championship.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think the Eagles really do have a shot there. Move on here to the other game of the weekend. Long Island University traveled to Oxford and played the Redhawks in Miami. Miami, if I could talk, came out on top 42-7. This is kind of a game that was fairly early. It was early fairly quickly. Miami came out, scored 7-14, 14-7 as Long Island only scored in the second quarter. But offensively, Miami of Ohio came out and they did what they were going to do. Really, they're going to throw the ball, get it in Sorensen's hands, and play ball. That's what they did.
Well, yeah, and I think everybody wants to talk about Miami does this, Miami does that. Jack Sorensen, you get that kid the ball, he'll make some things work. He'll make you sweat. He'll make you think twice about leaving him in single coverage. I mean, he's quite a ball player. He's a guy I think we could definitely seeing play on Sundays. A Julian Edelman kind of style player, and I think that he's one of those guys that we will definitely see grow and continue to move Miami in a positive direction. And yeah, I mean, you look at his numbers from this weekend, they're not insanely explosive, but 5 catches, 86 yards, 1 tutty. Like, I mean, that's going to get it done, especially in a must win kind of thing. I think Miami had a bad beat their first 2 games of the year, traveling down to Cincinnati in week 1, getting absolutely blasted, and then playing a close one with Minnesota last week. I think Miami got back on the right track, obviously an FCS opponent in Long Island, but they got back on the right track, and now they're ready to focus in, undefeated at home, and that's the way you want to start your home stand.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially these games are really important here as we get into conference play, because conference play will be very tough this year. I think that's across the board. I moved on to the next game. Bryant, they traveled to Akron, and Akron came away with a win, 35-14. Congrats to Coach Arn, friend of the program, got his first win of the 2021 season.
Yeah, sure. This one I was kind of keeping a close eye on because Bryant looked to try to make this one close. It was tied 14 apiece at the end of the third quarter. And for Coach Arth, I'm just very thankful that he was able to get his guys to really focus in and buy in at the end of the game. Really came out 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, and they just buckled down and got it done when they needed to. So again, like you said, hats off to Coach Arth. Congrats on the win, and we look forward to seeing what they bring to the table here in the coming weeks and seeing how they compete in the MAC.
Definitely. I mean, they have a tough one going out of Ohio State this weekend.
Yep,
and playing the Buckeyes. That's tough, yeah. I saw the line was like 54 points, but I think it's moved down to like 48 now. And that wouldn't surprise me because the Buckeyes have not been playing good ball lately.
Well, Ohio State's been struggling on defense, but I think that the other side of that is we're going to see Ohio State take advantage of this, unfortunately, what feels like an inferior opponent. They're going to take advantage of that and try different things. So they're not going to be successful on everything. And that's okay, because that then gives Akron an opportunity to, in return, try a few things. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be what they are hoping for in terms of the outcome. I don't think, obviously any given Saturday, I guess, is what you can say. So, but I do think that Akron is going to have an opportunity to go in and learn about their program. That's going to be the other thing, right? How tough are these guys? How resilient are they, knowing that this is a game that they're going to have no business being in? How resilient are they? And are they able to take away even some kind of a moral victory from the outcome?
Sure. We and I both became a fan of Coach Arn pretty quickly after talking to him, and he wants to win at Akron so bad. And I think given some time, he will start winning there, and they'll be very competitive in the MAC in the next couple of years. He's a football guy. He has his guys buying into the program.
Sure.
And I think you and I were very, very excited to talk to him. And even after he left, we go, okay, this guy's the real deal. And he will be fun to keep an eye on. The next game, we're kind of going to talk about it really quickly. It was Ball State at Wyoming. Wyoming came out 45-12. The Cardinals does not show up. All 3 phases of the game, they looked like they struggled. For many people, this was a tough one to watch because it was on Stadium Network, and nobody has Stadium Network.
No.
But yeah, the Ball State seemed flat. Unfortunately, Drew Plitt struggled. If I can even find his numbers, it's one of those things where he struggled getting the ball. He didn't play the entire game. He was 8 of 14 for 60 yards. I believe his name's Jake Paddock.
Yeah, Paddock.
John Paddock. He came in and finished the game with 13 of 20 for 82 yards, one interception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they only had 142 yards passing, 118 yards rushing against a Wyoming team that's not that good, I didn't think. I mean, Chambers, their quarterback, only had 201 yards rushing. But, yeah, Ball State, they struggled. And it was, it's a tough one to talk about. And the next game that we talk about will be tough for you to talk about. So
Sure. Well, I tuned in and tried to catch bits and pieces of this game. And you mentioned it. They just looked rough in all three aspects of the game. But I think that we kind of, when we talked about it, we just assumed Ball State's going to dominate this game after Wyoming needed a late score to beat Northern Illinois. That was a shootout last week. It was 50-43. And I think when we talked about it, it was Ball State's going to run away with this because Ball State is by and large a much better program this year than Northern Illinois. But a couple factors come into play here. I don't know what happened with Drew Plitt. I hope he's okay. I hope there's no injury. But I think a couple factors come into play here with the traveling out west. You have guys who are feeling maybe a little overconfident, guys coming in with a little bit of swag, like, yeah, look at us. We're the defending MAC champs. Maybe guys who are like, this non-conference stuff doesn't matter. It's conference play that matters. And I know Drew Plitt talked at Media Day about trying to be the first Ball State team to get to a New Year's Six bowl. Unfortunately, starting 1 and 2, that's just not going to get it done. And I hate seeing that because you always want to see the MAC be successful. Unfortunately, having Ball State out of the running like that, especially as the defending champs, that's a tough loss.
Yeah, Drew threw a pick six, and then I believe he got benched shortly after that for Paddock. And hopefully this week get a good week of practicing because conference play does start against the Rockets on Saturday, which we will be at.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about that here at the end. But let's get into your game, Toledo and Colorado State.
This one was rough. I didn't get to catch much of it. I was, dealing with a wedding, bachelor party kind of stuff for a friend of mine. Did not really get to catch much of this. And the problem was not that Toledo couldn't move the ball. Carter Bradley, 22 of 36, 254 passing yards. It was the fact that the offense just couldn't punch it in. They were moving the ball just fine. They just couldn't get anything going to get into the end zone. The score was 3-3 at halftime. Toledo took an early 6-3 lead in the third quarter. Colorado State bounces back with a field goal and then returns a punt for a touchdown. It was a 70-yard return that just really kind of changed the momentum of the game. Instead of it being a dogfight, it was Colorado State's going to come out and just kind of take control of this thing. And what was interesting is this was a rematch from 2 years ago where Toledo went out west to Colorado State, played a little bit of late night action out on the Mountain West stage, and just could not take advantage of the series sweep. Colorado State came in, played really, really well. Their running back, what was his name? David Bailey for Colorado State, 30 carries, 132 rushing yards. So he looked really good. Their quarterback, Todd Centillo, had 11 of 27, 110 yards. The ground game carried him, but it was the special teams that saved the day, getting them the extra touchdown off of the punt return. So a rough way for Toledo to start, especially after that nail biter loss to Notre Dame 32-29 just a week ago. Everybody was picking Toledo to absolutely run over Colorado State, who was at the time winless, and they just didn't do it.
No. Yeah, there'll be an interesting game this weekend, though. That's for sure. We will get into that here in a little bit. Move on to the next game. The Falcons of Bowling Green got their first win of the year against the Racers and Murray State. Say who they are now?
Yeah, I think they're the Murray State Racers.
Yeah. BGSU won that 27-10. BG is a team who we weren't really high on this year, but Matt McDonald came out and he balled.
Yeah, Matt McDonald he impressed me in this game. Now, obviously, I take it with a grain of salt because Murray State, again, FCS level program, a lot of these lower tier MAC teams who got wins this weekend, if you look across the board, were against FCS opponents. Actually, I think all of them were the Long Island FCS, Bryant FCS, and Murray State all FCS. So, yeah, I mean, Bowling Green looked pretty good in this game. Matt McDonald, 22 of 28, 221 and one score. This was a momentum builder for Bowling Green more than anything else. I think they needed a win so that they could start believing that they could win. And I think
Sure.
that's exactly what this game was for them. They're like, okay, now we can get into a rhythm. Now we can kind of fine tune a few things, get ready for conference play. So, yeah, Bowling Green looked pretty good in this game. They were tied at half with Murray State, which I know we were texting about that was a little concerning. But then they clamped it down in the second half, 17 unanswered points to run away with the victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Then it was a great, like you mentioned, a confidence swing, a momentum swing just to get a W or get a 1 in the W column.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge for BGSU, who has frankly kind of struggled over the last couple of years.
Sure.
Final game of the MAC weekend. Chippewas went down to Death Valley and played LSU and kept it interesting for a little bit. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, they really did. And when we spoke at Media Day to Coach McElwain, he called it like it was. He's like, look, these are money games. You know, what they're paying us to come down for a free win. And I mean, he's kind of an old school guy who's coached all over the country, including being a former head coach in the SEC. So he understands what that is, but he also understands it's an opportunity for his guys to go out and compete. So a lot of respect for them making not only this trip, but the trip out to Missouri this year as well, taking on two different SEC Tiger programs. Didn't walk away with a win on either one of them, but hats off to them for going out and putting in a good effort. Central Michigan, after the first quarter, only down 2 scores. Then the floodgates busted right open in the second quarter. And then the third and fourth quarters, they just traded touchdowns. Central Michigan got no closer than 28 points.
No, not at all. And it was a great opportunity for him. I'm sure Coach McElwain, having coached in that conference, that level before, probably he enjoyed it probably just as much as the players.
Sure.
Being on primetime SEC network, primetime in Death Valley is probably a lot different than a noon kickoff in Death Valley. So
I'm sure it is. I'm sure primetime in Death Valley is a lot different than primetime up at Mount Pleasant out at Kelly Short Stadium.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get into our helmet stickers for the week. Who do you got?
I'm going to start with my West Division helmet stickers. Just looking at everything, I'm going to go Corey Crooms, the wide receiver from Western Michigan. 8 catches, 161 yards, 1 touchdown. Kid just came ready to play. He came in to ball, and that's exactly what he did, leading both teams in receiving yards and catches. Came away, made some big plays for Western down the stretch when they needed to, got a score, helped Western secure the 44-41 victory.
Definitely. Yeah, for my I'm going to go with Western as well. I'm going to go Caleb Elby.
Sure.
He put on the best performance of a quarterback this weekend, 23 of 35 to 337 with 3 tutties. I mean, he's a quarterback who we did talk about early on in the season, who was going to be atop at the MAC with Plitt.
Dustin Crum,
Dustin Crum there, yeah. But he's definitely, I think, kind of maybe separated himself a little bit here early on in the years. He might be the premier quarterback in the MAC conference.
Sure. No, I can respect that. That's a good pick, and hats off to both of them for taking our West Division helmet stickers of the week. Who do you got in the East?
Oh, in the East, I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think that, with that performance they put on, I think even though Van Treese didn't put up a ton of numbers, he had a nice running attack to help him out. Marks had 64 yards. Cook had 85. But I think for my my helmet sticker, I'm going to go Dylan McDuffie.
Okay.
He led rushers for Buffalo this weekend, 15 carries, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. His longest was 25. But, obviously, Van Treese only threw for 146 yards. The ground game, they had totaled 262 yards. And McDuffie was a huge part of that. So I'm going to go Dylan McDuffie.
Cool. I'm going to go over to Miami, and probably a little bit of a cop out. And that's okay because I think that he definitely deserves it. I'm going to go with Brett Gabbert, quarterback for Miami. 10 of 16, not much in terms of passing, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. But I think that he guided this team into a much needed win, and he helped them secure what they needed to do. So Brett Gabbert gets my helmet sticker for Miami. Hats off to both of those guys for taking our East Division helmet stickers.
I feel like Brett Gabbert's been there forever, it feels like. And he's only a sophomore.
Yeah, well, I think he redshirted.
Yeah.
And then he got a freshman year, and then he got last year, and then he's still going to have this year and then the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll have quite a career there.
He's not Miami. If he's not the all-time leading passer, then I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, I don't either. That's Ben Roethlisberger might hold that record.
That's true. Big Ben, and then put him under him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wouldn't be bad company to be around on a passing record list.
Definitely not. So to kind of wrap up our show here, we teased it earlier. We are heading to Muncie this weekend. We are going to the Ball State Toledo game. This is a game where we're gonna cover it, but we're not gonna cover it in the extent that we usually would. I had the discussion. We're gonna kind of go as fans. Yeah. We haven't been to a game as fans in a while, and so it's family weekend in Muncie, so that's always cool. I got to experience that for 4 years as a student there. So that's one thing I'm definitely not going to miss out on. But we're going to go. We're going to have fun. We're going to tailgate. We'll be doing pictures. We'll be doing all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to in-depth interviewing coaches and players like we would normally do, we're going to take a little break from that this time. We're going to go enjoy Muncie. We're going to go to my favorite establishment, the Chug, have a cocktail over there. We're going to tailgate. We're going to do everything we did like we did in college. It's going to be a fun weekend. And but we'll obviously be posting videos and pictures from our experience, though.
Yeah, going to be a great weekend. Already reached out to a friend of the show, Coach Mike Fleck. We are going to meet up with him, catch up, and see what he's up to, and we'll be sure to share that with you guys as well. But like AJ said, going to go as fans, going to just enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the game. I know that I'm looking forward to it. It'll be the first time that we've gone together to our own schools to watch a game together. We were at the MAC championship this last year where we watched Ball State win, and they were playing Buffalo. This is the first time we're cheering against each other. So that'll be interesting to see. And hopefully neither one of us leaves too heartbroken from that game.
Absolutely. I think it'll be fun to watch. It's going to be a nice crisp 65 to 70 degrees Saturday. It's a 2:30 kickoff, I think, or
2 o'clock kickoff.
2 o'clock. And so, we're going to be down there bright and early. We're going to start tailgating, and we're going to have some fun. So you guys make sure you keep an eye on our Twitter and our social medias for that. Outside of that, that's all I've got.
Cool. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We definitely appreciate the love and support you guys have been showing us. Our numbers on listeners each week has been growing since we've come back and since the start of college football. So we definitely appreciate that. Got a couple things in the work. We're actually going to be having a special guest on next week. Sarah Holland from the University of Buffalo is going to come on and help us kind of preview the MAC conference slate and talk about some Buffalo football. So I'm excited to have her on next week.
Definitely. She'll be our first representative from Buffalo. And we met her at Media Day, got to talk to her for a little bit. And she actually offered to come on the show back then. And now we can finally do it. So it'll be fun talking to her. She's going to be somebody who's going to be very in depth. So it'll be a lot of fun to get her insight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Continue to follow us on social media at College Sport Pod on Twitter. We finally broke 850 followers. Thanks to all of you guys. Definitely appreciate that love and support. Continue to follow us, like, share, and comment on our content. And we will see you guys Saturday from Ball State versus Toledo over at Schumann Stadium. And after that, we will see you next week.
See you.